You want to know the truth? Megan Estin just took a major L. Don't let the headlines fool you, because no matter how the mainstream media spins this, the reality is clear. Megan tried to go after Magro, the online media personality, for defamation, harassment, and even deep fake allegations. But when the dust settled, she came up short. So, how do you feel today, Megan? That's the real question. Here's the backstory. Over 2 years ago, Tory Lanez was convicted in a high-profile criminal trial. During that time, criticism toward Megan Estin exploded online. But Megan says criticism isn't the same as bullying, and that line is exactly what fueled the lawsuit against Magro, whose reporting and commentary on social media didn't sit well with her. The case wasn't just about personal grievances, it could shape the future of online journalism, social media reporting, and who qualifies as media. Megan alleged that Magro waged a targeted campaign of harassment and false reporting against her. This wasn't just casual commentary or opinions about the Tory Lanez trial. According to Megan, Magro's posts crossed the line into defamation and cyberstalking, promoting false narratives, and even circulating a deepfake explicit image of her online. Megan claimed these actions caused emotional distress and damaged her reputation. But the most fascinating part of this case wasn't just the accusations. It was the battle over whether Magro and other social media creators qualify as media. Megan's team argued that if the court deemed Magro a media figure, she would have protections and certain procedural requirements would have to be met before suing. Essentially, if the court sided with Magro as a journalist, the defamation claim would be much harder to win. Megan even called in academics and experts for deposition, trying to prove that bloggers like Magro aren't real journalists. The judge ultimately left the decision to the jury, and that became a game changer. Magro, after all, had been front and center during the Tory Lanez trial, reporting daily, sharing updates, and analyzing events for her audience. Anyone paying attention could see that she was performing the functions of a journalist, documenting events, providing commentary, and reporting facts. This is why many people watching this case felt that Megan's lawsuit was overreaching. Then came the deep fake issue. This is where things really got messy. Megan argued that Magro had shared an explicit deepfake image, claiming it was part of a broader campaign to portray her as dishonest about the Tory Lanez case. That was the moment the lawsuit gained traction. While opinions and reporting on the trial alone likely wouldn't have led to a case, the alleged distribution of that deepfake gave Megan something tangible to point to in court. During the trial, Megan's attorneys argued that Magro was working with Tory Lanez and his father to spread false information and influence public opinion. They claimed Magro was getting paid to push narratives that painted Megan as a liar and mentally unstable. On the other hand, Magro testified that any payments received from Lanez were personal and unrelated to her reporting, and she maintained that her posts were protected by the First Amendment. It's important to understand the stakes here. The court had to decide not just whether Magro's actions were harmful, but also whether she could even be considered a media figure. That decision would determine whether Megan could pursue a defamation claim against her. And this isn't just a small technicality. If Magro is recognized as media, Megan must follow proper legal protocols, including sending cease and desist notices before filing defamation lawsuits. Skip those steps, and any defamation claim can be dismissed. Fast forward to the trial itself. Megan went all in. Depositions, subpoenas, and even calling in big names from social media and academia. She tried to prove that Magro's reporting went beyond opinion and crossed into lies intended to defame. But in court, Magro's status as a media figure became central. The jury had to weigh whether her actions constituted reporting within the rights and protections afforded to journalists. Then came the verdict, and this is where things get interesting. The jury found Magro liable for reposting the deepfake content, but, and this is critical, the defamation claim was thrown out. Why? Because Magro was legally recognized as a media figure. This meant that proper protocols for defamation weren't followed, and Megan's team couldn't prove that Magro had knowingly published false information with malicious intent. Essentially, Megan did not prove defamation. Financially, the court initially recommended $75,000 in damages to Megan. The judge then adjusted that figure down to $59,000. Now, consider this. Megan and her team reportedly spent between $2 to $5 million on this lawsuit. Subpoenas, depositions, legal fees, and courtroom time add up, and for a result of $59,000? That's a huge discrepancy. On paper, it might look like a win for Megan, but in reality, it's a massive L. Social media reactions confirm this. People online were not holding back. Many argue that Meghan's approach was overzealous and even reckless, bringing unnecessary attention to journalists and independent media who were simply doing their job. Calling out bloggers, dragging academics into the legal battle, and attempting to assert control over reporting all backfired. The public perception was that Meghan was overreaching, and the headlines praising her as victorious didn't tell the full story. Magro herself spoke about the verdict, describing it as a relief. The alternative, she said, could have been devastating: a multi-million-dollar judgment against her and a chilling effect on reporting for independent media. For anyone working in journalism, especially the new media space, this was a landmark moment. It reinforced that reporting, commentary, and independent journalism are protected under certain standards and cannot simply be silenced by lawsuits, especially when proper legal procedures aren't followed. The case also highlighted the growing tension between traditional media and independent social media reporters. Legacy outlets and corporate journalists were largely rooting against Magro, trying to invalidate new media's legitimacy. But the jury's recognition of her as a media figure sets a precedent. Bloggers, independent creators, and social media reporters can have rights and protections similar to traditional journalists. This is a significant win for anyone operating outside legacy media structures. Looking at Meghan's strategy, it's clear there were major miscalculations. First, she aimed to portray Magro as maliciously spreading lies for payment, but there was insufficient evidence to back up claims of coordinated defamation. Second, the deepfake content, while problematic, represented a small portion of the case, and the financial damages awarded were disproportionately low compared to the millions spent in legal fees. Third, attempting to discredit an entire segment of independent media may have done lasting damage to her public image. And the lesson here goes beyond the courtroom. For creators, journalists, and everyday social media users, this case reinforces the importance of understanding media rights and legal protections. You can't just assume that sharing opinions or commentary will automatically lead to liability. Courts recognize distinctions between personal defamation, reporting, and new media commentary. Magro's legal victory, or at least her avoidance of massive liability, demonstrates that. Meanwhile, for Meghan, the L is multi-layered. Financially, she spent millions chasing a relatively tiny sum. Legally, she failed to prove defamation. Publicly, she generated criticism for targeting independent media and overextending her lawsuit. And strategically, this loss could make her more hesitant to pursue similar cases in the future. When you're a public figure trying to assert control over narrative in the age of social media, missteps like this can be costly. The broader implications for media are profound. Independent creators and bloggers are being recognized as legitimate voices with protections similar to journalists. This isn't just about Magro, it's about the entire ecosystem of new media. If Meghan had succeeded, it could have created a chilling effect where anyone reporting on high-profile cases could be silenced through lawsuits. The jury's decision essentially pushed back against that, ensuring that independent reporting can continue without fear of arbitrary legal retaliation. It also raises questions about resource imbalance. Meghan had the funds, the team, and the legal machinery to pursue Magro aggressively. The fact that the outcome still favored Magro underscores the limits of using financial power to control media narratives. Money alone doesn't guarantee victory in court, and the protections for media figures are real and enforceable. So, where does this leave us? Meghan technically received a judgment for $59,000, but considering the cost of pursuing the lawsuit and the public scrutiny she faced, it's hard to call this a victory. Meanwhile, Magro walked away largely unscathed, with her status as a media figure affirmed and her First Amendment protections reinforced. For new media creators, this is a W. For Meghan Ashton, it's a lesson in the limits of power, influence, and the risks of overreaching in legal battles against independent reporters. In the end, the Meghan Ashton versus Magro case isn't just about one celebrity versus a blogger. It's about the evolving landscape of media, freedom of speech, and legal protections in the digital age. It shows the risks public figures take when trying to control narratives, the responsibility of independent media to report responsibly, and the consequences when lawsuits don't align with legal standards. As the dust settles, Meghan's $59,000 award seems almost symbolic compared to the millions spent and the public backlash endured. Meanwhile, independent media walks away with a reaffirmed sense of legitimacy and protection. This isn't just a story about a lawsuit, it's a roadmap for creators, journalists, and anyone who reports or comments on public figures. Understanding your rights, your status as media, and the importance of following legal procedures is crucial. So, what do you think? Did Magro come out on top? Did Meghan really win anything here? Or is this a cautionary tale for anyone who tries to silence independent voices? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story isn't just over, it's shaping how media, law, and public perception collide in the digital era. And if you're still watching and want to catch another story about public figures under fire, check out our next video about Charleston White facing backlash over comments about Candace Owens. The drama never stops, and we'll keep breaking it down for you. This verdict, this trial, and this outcome are a reminder. In the age of social media, the rules of engagement are changing, and the line between traditional journalism and new media is blurrier than ever. Meghan Ashton tried to assert control, but in doing so, she highlighted the power of independent voices, the limits of celebrity influence, and the reality that not every lawsuit ends the way you hope. At the end of the day, Magro stands as a symbol of what independent media can achieve when you understand your rights and navigate the system wisely. Meghan, meanwhile, is left with a cautionary tale, a legal expense, and a public perception that this wasn't the win she thought it would be. And that's the full story. The verdict is out, the dust has settled, and the digital media landscape has been reshaped, one high-profile case at a time.